Okay, so this is the videos for Chapter 10 of the 7HRC unit, looking at government policy and legal regulation. I think, including this introductory video, I'm probably going to make about 6 or 7 videos in total. Okay, so here goes. This one is obviously an introduction to the topic generally and the chapter in the book. As I say, it is chapter 10 of the textbook that you can see here. So what we're going to be looking at is government policy and legal regulation, as I said, and this is looking at the kind of things that shape what government does, what its policies are going to be, what it's trying to achieve, and how that impacts on everything that happens to us as a society and for businesses generally. So within that we have various different institutions that can be involved in developing public policy, and within those we also have specific people that are involved in different aspects. So we have the Prime Minister's office. Within that, obviously the key person being involved in making policy would be the Prime Minister themselves. The Treasury, and that would be the Chancellor of the Exchequer, other Treasury officials. The Cabinet Office, you would have the Cabinet Ministers, and so it goes on like that. So government departments, you'll have the spending department officials within the different departments, but on top of all of those government appointed officials, you would also have some pressure groups, and policy is also developed and sometimes can be a bit different, looking at the devolved government of Scotland, Wales, and the local government, so our regional councils, and currently the EU officials as well, although it's a bit difficult to judge exactly what to include in this presentation because we don't actually know whether we're going to be staying in Europe or we're going to leave, or how all of that is going to happen. So from that point of view, there are certain aspects in my presentations covering this chapter which will look a little bit at what the current political situation is and the government policy relating to Europe and how Europe shapes what the policy is within the UK. But you probably do need to consider at the same time what Britain's policy might be if we leave Europe. So have a think about that as well, so that you're covering different things. The final point on the slide here is obviously recognising that different political parties, the Labour Party, the Conservatives, will have different agendas. They'll have different ideas of how things should be achieved, but their ideas of what should be achieved, so getting the economy growing so that we're bringing money into the country, so we're generating jobs, trying to increase the level of skills in the country. All of these things, all of the parties will agree about, but where they are going to disagree or where they will have different ideas will be round about how they actually go about achieving these. So most of the stuff in in the book, in the chapter, relates to kind of the coalition government round about 2010. So some of the slides we're going to look at will focus on that, but bear in mind that policy to some extent is dynamic, and every time you have a new political party in power or a new government in power, their agenda, their policy areas may vary slightly. But if we look at the next slide, it gives us an idea of some things they may have different ideas about, but generally speaking, these are the kind of things that doesn't matter who's in power, they're going to focus on the same kind of things. Perhaps just what they're trying to achieve might be different. Obviously, as I say, this is a coalition government coming into power in 2010, and under the education banner, one of the things that they were looking at was the idea of tuition fees and things like that. So That was obviously one of their big things, which would vary from party to party depending on who's in power at the time. So as we can see, there are a range of different policy areas, looking at the economy, looking at healthcare, looking at their policies towards education, taxation, Europe, defence, environment. I'm not going to read them all, you can do that yourselves. But there are these different policy areas, and as we saw in class on Wednesday when we were looking at the economy, you kept asking, or we kept talking about the fact there was crossover. Government policy, politics was coming into some of the economic stuff, and now we're looking at policy and a more political focus. And one of the main themes coming through this is economics as well. I'm not going to spend too much time looking at economics because we've already covered that, but if there is anything that you're not sure about, I would like you to bring it to my attention. Thanks. Okay, so for the moment, that is the end of our introduction, and I'll now do videos looking at things in a bit more detail.